Hi everyone, Adam here. So yes, I am just having a look at the news plan for the weekend. Obviously, it's been very eventful lately, and it's unlikely that that is going to change anytime soon. So I would be prepared for the worst and hope for the best. So this will be for the week commencing Monday, the 4th of April. So really, I'll keep an eye on the UK. The UK is performing a little bit better than expected at the moment. I'm curious to see how Euro CPI is doing. For the US, a lot of the stuff could come out the same or come out worse. I'm not expecting things to get better, but we'll just have to play it as it lies for now. Again, I'd like to hear what comes out of the ECB press conference as well this coming week. And then finally, Friday, as we head into Easter season, it looks like we've got the first of the holidays kicking off on Friday. So not a lot of volatility expected from the markets under normal or sort of ordinary circumstances. But with kind of this administration, we're just going to have to see how that plays out. Let's go to the charts and have a look at things there. So let's have a look at the VIX. So you can just see a lot of volatility here on the daily, a little bit all over the place. We've just smashed right through that sort of 40 level, which for me historically would be that kind of threshold where we're going into something a little bit more serious. We sort of closed back below that for now, but the month ain't over yet. In fact, we're not even halfway through it, technically speaking, at the time of this recording. So yes, we could see it start to rise. I mean, for me, it'll be interesting to see this kind of volatility kind of measurements compared to historic stuff previously, looking at the global financial crisis, looking at COVID, you kind of get that as a frame of reference. But for now, obviously, the markets are taking this quite seriously, and we're only a couple of days into it, possibly even only a week. Let's have a quick look at that dollar index. Okay, so the dollar this week weakened considerably. I think that weekly candle showing the market, although it bounced back a little bit off a historical level. If you look at it here on a monthly, you can see that we broke to the outside, had a failed breakout towards the tail end of December, and then January, beginning part of this year, we've now gone to the other side. Often in cases like that, we could continue to go further. So it fails to go one way, it actually goes the other way. We could see that happen. We're below the 50-period moving average at the moment, but we are sitting at a key level. Okay, we're sitting very close to that $100 mark, and also we're sitting at a key level of historical resistance and support. So what I'll be looking for this week is to see a continuation of that, if that's going to be the case. We did manage to close back up above 100, but ultimately I want to see, actually officially, let's go see what the close is on that. I beg your pardon, let's see what the close is on it. So the close, okay, just below 100 on that. Yeah, so the momentum is certainly more to the downside. We've got a little bit of a bullish reaction here, a little bit of bullish divergence. So we could see a bit of a pullback and then a continuation down this week. Let's move across and have a look at Euro. So Euro has obviously benefited a lot from this. You can see here moving right to the other side of this range, closing above those previous highs. So the momentum here more to the upside than anything else. Could we see a continuation? Absolutely. I mean, we could see a continuation back into these old highs and then possibly even continuing up towards that 1.2. It would seem that unless things change, it makes more sense that we would see that Euro continue to strengthen. I was going to say, please excuse any background noises. I'm away on holiday at the moment, and I'm on a boat at the moment. Okay, so there's background crew and stuff. Okay, so the other one that's sort of interesting, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, is dollar Swissy. So we could see an extremely large move here, straight bursting right through. That's a single sort of candle, this weekly candle bursting right through this range to the other side. And we can see that dollar weakening against the Swissy. So just an observation here, the dollar weakening, the Swissy strengthening, and the euro strengthening. And they're strengthening much more against the dollar than the pound is. I mean, the pound here is producing a very strong bullish candle at the moment. And again, I still expect this to continue to the upside. For now, let's have a look at dollar yen. Dollar yen not going down as much when you compare that to dollar Swissy. Still got some room to the downside here, down towards that 140 level. And although there's some bullish divergence, I see it here. We've got fresh lows, but we still have higher lows on the MACD. Although at some point I do expect a bit of a correction. That momentum to the downside seems kind of pretty much set in stone for the time being. Dollar CAD as well, finally having that breakdown. So it really needed to come back down to test this level of resistance. So again, we could see a bit of a bounce here, a bit of support on this area of resistance could turn into a little bit of support there. So possibly this week I'll be looking for any kind of pullbacks and continuations. But here, for example, that momentum is heavily bearish, so there's no signs of that trend necessarily changing at this time. Dollar Swissy showing a little bit of it. Actually, I beg your pardon, dollar Swissy on the daily, no, looking very, very happy with that bearish momentum. Dollar yen, looking a little bit of divergence. Let's have a look at GBP, a little bit of divergence showing up there possibly, and euro dollar also a little bit of divergence, but certainly from a price action perspective, that trend looks kind of like like it's pretty much kind of going to continue the way that it is. Then we can have a look at gold. Gold also kind of having that small correction on that weekly and then continuing up. So there's no doubt. I mean, I've been talking about gold being in a bubble for a while. We're still within that, but it's a consequence of all the stresses going on in the world at the moment right now. But a very strong weekly bullish engulfing bar. So we're going to have to see how this performs and closing at all-time highs. So there's a lot of the market reacting to that. And so at this point, it's just kind of ignoring the indicators. We can just see that it's going to continue to head up until it ultimately shows some exhaustion. Then having a quick look at crude oil. Crude oil, I've been talking about this for a while, getting to see it break through this level of support. We saw that this last week. Actually, we fell through support. So we came down, tested this, then dipped below it, but then closed back up above it. So you can see here historically in 2023, we dropped below it, pushed back up, and here we sort of pushed back up over that. But the momentum for now is still to the downside. So I'm curious this week to see if we'll see more tests of that level of support and to see if we'll see that continue to head down. Let's have a quick look at the global indices. So global indices, again, that weekly candle being a bit wild. We've got wicks above and below, which is a sign of it swishing around. From a monthly perspective so far, we're not closed yet. So I'm not going to do anything just yet until I see how the monthly candle closes. So basically for me, it was really watching whether the monthly candle closes like September's did, where it actually finishes to the upside. We could see a further push that way, which is a possibility. But also taking the weekly with the wicks above and below, I think that this is still effectively swinging around so that it isn't clear enough at this time to. And also, we're not necessarily trending. We could get a massive red candle, then a big green candle, and stay in the same place. So again, I'm exercising immense caution at this point in time. We've come back up into resistance this week. Although this is incredibly bullish, it also just failed to follow through. So I want to see how it reacts to this level this week if we start to continue down. Okay, for now, the momentum from a monthly perspective right now could go either way. Could just continue to close back down, and I think that if it does start to edge lower, it'll then gain more momentum and obviously finish even further down. So very, very cautious. What I need to see this week actually is a break above the high of last week to see that bullishness come back into the game and then close above those levels. Let's compare it to the S&P. So the S&P, again, we've had that correction from a technical perspective, ladies and gents. We've actually managed to let off some of that steam. I'm still not really convinced that we'll get the answer to this within April. Then we'll have to see how May responds to this. Okay, but having said that, I'll be watching the highs and lows of last week's candle, especially the high, because if we are going to continue up, I would expect to break the high of that. And again, a lot of this wild swing around is because the markets aren't really sure what to make of this. And I don't think any clarity has necessarily arrived. But certainly, I think the investors would be the ones more suited to determine what's going to happen versus economists. Investors are the ones that are really pulling the trigger, so we need to see where they're going with all of this. And the story is exactly the same for the NASDAQ. Let's have a look at the Russell 2000. Really just getting pushed back into the range. Anything here that to me shows any signs of any kind of potential trend change. Again, the momentum is very much to the downside. It's contained, so it still looks relatively bearish there. The FTSE coming back up, but again, notice how a lot of these close below those recent support or resistance levels, and this looking not as strong necessarily at this time, but definitely letting off some of that pressure, which is quite nice. But we still have the bearish divergence. So again, the technicals here on the monthly are hinting at continued either consolidation or correction. The DAX finally really coming back into those highs, just beautiful, very crisp, right into where that level of resistance was prior to the breakout, and then testing that for support, but also here setting up for potential continuation lower. I need to clean up some of these historical daily levels here. They just look a little bit nuts. All right, let's carry on. Okay, so let's have a look at the Bitcoin. Let's have a look at that. So actually this looking somewhat bullish for now, actually as a weekly candle, pushing right into the close there. Overall, still relatively choppy, but starting to show bullish signs over here. So Bitcoin itself could actually have a bit more of a recovery. I'd like, again, we've closed right near the highs, but a break of these recent highs here around about that 88,600 level, that would be relatively significant if we manage to do that. Ethereum showing a little bit of a bullish sign within this downtrend, some bullish divergence creeping in here. So yeah, very well, we could see bit more of a move up this week back into those recent levels of resistance. Let's have a look at the MAX 7. Very strong bullish bounce off that level of support, again off the monthly over here. Okay, so again, I just need to see a follow through this week, but overall, don't forget we're still on a downtrend despite the bounce over here. We need to see more of that. We'd have to ultimately get back up above that 50-period moving average, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen just yet. We'll have to see really. So this week, do we get more of that kind of bullishness that just continues up? Then we have a quick look at Microsoft as well. Okay, so just a very strong, obviously very strong bounce so far, bullish candle, but the monthly we can't count on just yet. So we need to see how these levels of resistance ultimately play out. So again, a big move on Amazon, but we're in that area where we could potentially get that bounce. So we've spoken about this before. Then we've got Google below the lows over here, so gapping down and then pushing up a little bit higher. So, if I just go through all of these, they're all kind of sitting on those key levels. There's a possibility there could be a bit more of a follow through on that for Nvidia as well. For these things, let's have a look for Tesla. So Tesla's doing a much smaller move for Tesla, much smaller compared to the rest of these, bumping right up into resistance there. So the question is this is an initial reaction? Or are we going to see, is there going to be a follow through on it? Okay, so is there going to be a follow through on it? Here I spoke about the possible head and shoulders breakthrough of this, and will we see a continue down? Basically for me, this is almost certainly one of the best times to sit on your hands and watch, because as we've seen, the market can drop, it can rise, it can bounce, it's swinging all over the place. But what isn't really clear is what's going to happen in the medium term or the longer term. It's very difficult to predict that because, of course, the current administration is incredibly unpredictable and very volatile, and the markets tend not to like that. So I would say that if it continues to behave in this way, I can't see how the markets could retain confidence in it. But the fact is that technically we've got some signals here where possibly the markets might find a bit of a bounce. Now we need to see if there's a follow through on that. I'm going to leave you with that, but absolutely, ladies and gentlemen, exercise some extreme caution now. Personally, I've just reduced my risk per trade. I've reduced the number of trades. I've reduced the markets I'm trading, all kinds of things there. Okay, so, but again, it's an interesting period in history to be living through, isn't it? So take care, and I'll speak to you soon.